Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to Live Dreams, Thanksgiving edition. As you can tell, I am not in the typical studio tonight. I am on the road visiting family, so wanted to still join you. So the lighting's probably not as good, and neither is the background, but that's okay. We're not here for any of that. But can you hear me okay, Joey?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
All right. Joey has cows outside.
I do have cows outside. I just saw one walk by the back door. She's out.
We should be facing the back door so we could see. That's okay. Well, excited. Got a lot going on. And we didn't want to skip just because we were on the road, because we skipped for our retreat. So let me see if I can do this without my glasses. I usually have more light, so it's hard to read a little bit. But all right. Well, Joe, you want to open us up with a word of prayer?
I would prefer if you do it.
Oh, okay. Well then. Father God, we thank you for the opportunity to be here, to hear from you in dreams, to hear from you in this here realm, dreams and visions. And God, even interpretation, word of knowledge, word of wisdom. We thank you for the opportunity to interpret what you're giving us in the night hour. And we ask for your blessing on this time. We ask for your grace and your favor on this whole week, but also on tonight, Lord God, that you would be with us, that you would guide us, that we would hear from you, that we would deliver the interpretation and the message from the Holy Spirit. And that all of us that are watching, Lord, would grow in our seer ability and our ability to interpret, Lord God, even as others chime in the comments and we hear the yes and amen of your Spirit on the basis of 2 to 3 witnesses. God, just continue to bring us into that place that it can be said of us that we are among those who can stand in the counsel of the Lord to both see and hear his word. Bless this time tonight, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Well, I might share a dream. I had an interesting dream last night. I won't go first, but I might be persuaded to share a dream later. But let's get started with Brenda.
Hey, John. Hey, Joey.
Brenda, how are you?
I'm good. I'm surprised that you guys are on. I was thinking that you weren't going to be on tonight, and I got a notification, so I was excited.
Well, we like to be on if we can at all be. I thought I was going to be driving today, but I ended up not driving today. I ended up actually being stationary. So we thought, well, let's go ahead and do it. So here we are.
Okay. Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
There was a house out in a field. I had this dream on the 17th of November. And it was off of the interstate highway. There was a short chain link fence around the property, and I couldn't figure out how to get to this house. And I went down a road to find a driveway so I could enter to this house. A man was at the entrance, and I asked him, how do I get to the house? He said the others had made a path in the grass that led to the house. So I saw the path. So I headed toward the house. This house was known to everyone, and anyone could come to this house and bring their dirty dishes and get them washed. And so I had brought my dishes. So I went into the house and started washing my dishes in the sink. And then a lady showed up and she said, there was a little box above the sink. And she said, well, they painted over that. I need a screwdriver and I need to unscrew, and I'll get in there and I'll turn the lever on and it'll bring hot water. So you can wash your dishes in hot water. And I said, okay. So I washed all my dishes up. And then I looked outside and I saw another house right next door to this house. And so I knocked on the door of that house, but no one answered. So I peeked through the front window and appeared that a family had been living in the house, but had left abruptly. And it was just in an uproar. The house, there was toys and there was dirty dishes in the sink. And then I went outside of that house and there was a garden outside full of broccoli. Someone had planted broccoli in the garden. And I decided that I wanted to propagate the plants and make more plants in the garden. It was kind of a small garden. And so I took the plants up and then I separated them and then I replanted them next to those plants. And then after I got through planting all of the broccoli plants, I looked and the garden was just full of these gigantic green broccoli plants. There was probably as big as a basketball. And that was the end of the dream.
Sounds like a Joey dream.
Why do you always say that? Really? Why?
Probably because it's a field. It's got chores going on. It's sounds like the farm.
No, you got to give me a little bit to get in the groove here. You can go first.
I prayed. This one's yours.
You got to give me a minute. Yeah.
I have a friend that I told this dream to, and she kind of interprets dreams, and she's pretty good at interpreting. And she said she thought that this was revival.
Revival.
Going to the house and then washing and having hot water, and I don't know, but that's what.
So there was a chain link fence though preventing you from getting to the house initially, right?
Yeah, and it was off the interstate. It was really strange, but you could see the house off the interstate, but you couldn't see a way to get to the house until you went to the southwest side of the road, and that's where the man said, well, these people have already made a path through. Can you see the path? And so I drove my pickup where I could see where they had drove on the grass, and I followed the path to the house. And so it was kind of like a short chain link fence. It wasn't that's all I remembered. It was kind of vague, just kind of like it was fenced around, but it was, just everyone could see it from the interstate and knew that's where they could go.
Okay. Well, the interstate to me sounds like highways and byways. I like that. The road less traveled from Monica there. Soft path. Yeah. It's interesting going to the house to wash the dishes. Somebody had put at the very beginning Field of Dreams, and I kind of resonated with that too, like the idea of, oh, Monica again. If you build it, they will come. And just at the very end of that movie, how there's this line of cars waiting to get in to that field, to watch the baseball game and everything. So I just saw like a line of cars waiting to wash dishes. For me, washing dishes doesn't mean revival. It's more like hell, but just kidding. It's not quite that bad. But I mean, swimming in a pool in the backyard maybe could be like getting baptized and, things like that. But it's interesting that they're all going to this house off the interstate and they can't find the way in because of the chain link. So a chain link is a fence that literally doesn't hold water, but it's not like a wooden fence that you can't see over. You can clearly see through it, but it's just access has been denied. Most people are not going to try to drive through a chain link fence, and so they're looking for the way around. And so that's the idea of there's at least a level of boundary or a border, and an access has been denied for people to just kind of walk on in or whatever. They need to go to a certain path, drive through the grass, where the path was or where other cars had gone. And then they can see, okay, this is the way that I can get access to the house. So, but they go into the house to wash dishes. And did you say like the sink was all taped up?
No, the lady appeared and said there was a little box that she needed to get a screwdriver so she could turn the hot water on, just for hot water to wash the dishes with. That it had been, someone had painted the screw hole or something, and the hot water wouldn't work because of that. So she had to get a screwdriver and unscrew it and then hit the lever to turn the hot water on.
That's interesting, because if you think that this would have been the place where people were going to wash the dishes, you would think that they would be ready for them to wash the dishes there. So the dishes, it's like, what do the dishes represent? Dishes are leftover, typically food particles on a plate. Oh, brokenness. That's interesting. Monica's batting 1,000 a day. Was screwed with. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, dishes are something that happens over and over and over again. It's so I could see that kind of play to revival, but it's not. I mean, it happens 3 times a day. It's not like it's, people typically eat more than like once a month. So it's not like they're saving up a month's worth of dishes. The idea of revival is exactly that. I mean, people think revival means like a supernatural lifestyle. That's not what it means at all. It's funny, we pray for revival constantly, and I know very few people that can actually define revival. And it's it's reviving or bringing back to life something that was once alive and is now dead. And so it's not consistently living like a supernatural lifestyle. I think we want to define it as that. But that's kind of the idea of dishes, is you have to keep washing them, because if they continue to eat, you're continuing to get them dirty. And so to me, it more reminds me of the Ephesians 5 verse that talks about a husband to a wife washing her with water through the word, and how they do that in a household. It's funny, everybody takes the Ephesians 5 verse. Not everybody, a whole lot of people take Ephesians 5 out of context when it talks about the submission part, but it actually starts way back where it says, do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, which means it's not just don't get drunk, it's do something else instead. Instead, speak to one another with psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. Sing and make music in your heart to the Lord. You know how difficult it would be to fight with a spouse if we were doing that 24/7? Sing and make music in your heart to the Lord. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. And then it goes, wives, submit to your husbands as unto the Lord, and husbands, love your wives, washing her with water through the word. Well, if you're washing her with water through the word, again, if you back up to the beginning of that verse where you're speaking to one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, then you're continuing to do that as well. So I think it's the idea of a level of refreshing that needs to happen on a more continuous basis. Marriages and households can also be pretty upset if nobody's doing the dishes, but it's weird that people got to come to that house to do the dishes. Did you actually do the dishes there?
I did. I washed up my dishes after she turned the hot water on. And because I started, and then she said, well, let me, she wanted to turn the hot water on. I wanted to stay at that house, and because it was cozy there, and then it was getting dark. I was going to leave because it was getting dark, and I was just going to leave in the morning. That was also, I wrote that down too. So.
And you ended up going to the house next door.
Yes, I just, I looked out there and saw another house, and it looked empty, but then when I looked in the window, there was people had lived there, and it looked like they had just left, like in a hurry.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Joey.
So one of the things I found really interesting is that you can see it off the interstate, but nobody's really going there. It's like we all know what we're supposed to do, but very few people really actually take the path that we're supposed to, right? For the dirty dishes, I heard cleanliness is next to godliness. And even the house next door, the caretakers have left and the house is in disarray.
Mm-hmm.
But with a little bit of care in the garden, after you've done your dishes, you've traveled that path that most of us, or as a society, most of us don't. You're able to tend the garden and it multiplies drastically.
Yeah.
So it's kind of about, I think it's kind of about your ability to, with a little bit of care in people's lives, that you're able to help them blossom and bloom and produce abundantly.
Mm.
That's what I got.
Yeah, it was interesting. So what was the house next door? That place was a disaster, it sounded like.
Yeah.
But that's where the fruit was, or was it in the first house?
That's where, no, the fruit, the garden was at that house. When I left that house after peeking through the window and seeing, and then I went around, and that garden was there. And then I decided to make the garden bigger by, replanting part of the other ones. And then once I put them in the ground and I got finished planting all of those, then I looked at the garden, and the garden was just full of these big old broccoli heads, just probably as big as I don't know, a big old, just huge. They were great big.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're going to the place to wash something that needs to be washed on a regular basis. And again, I did like somebody had said the idea of, well, we sleep every day. So like the idea of dreaming. And of course, Job talks about God speaks once, twice in a dream in the vision of the night to open our ears and to seal his instruction on our hearts. And so to me, it reminds me of of that idea, but it's also the idea of clearing your plate, which is, are you doing anything with the revelation that God, are we doing anything with the revelation that God is giving us at night? Some of us write down everything. Some of us don't write down anything. I think writing down is the first step. But what's really interesting is that house is a little bit more together, but it's difficult to access. And once you get in there, it looks like the hot water hasn't been used in a while because it needs to be adjusted because it's been painted over. But when you go to the other house is a disaster, but out in the garden is just this plentiful, incredible garden of things. And I think that that's sometimes the things that we throw away, like our dreams, the things that we don't pay attention to actually could yield a whole lot of great fruit in our lives. I also feel like the dishes represent sort of kind of like a wineskin thing. But yeah, it's an interesting dream. Do you know whose house it was?
No.
Okay.
but everyone wanted to go there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was really
Yeah. It's pretty interesting.
different.
Go ahead.
It was just a kind of a strange dream. I was like,
Yeah.
what's this about?
Yeah, it's
Clearly
interesting.
an allegory for something. Obviously isn't literal. So the
Yeah.
question becomes, what is the hot water? What are the dishes? And what is the garden?
Yeah.
And then the idea of access, the one house being trashed, the other house being hard to access. I think it's like the idea of the road less traveled. I think even the chain link fence feels like the dream world. You can see it, but if you don't write it down, you forget it quickly. And it becomes a boundary to be able to access what's inside. What's inside could actually wash your heart, wash your mind. We don't know. It may happen anyway. It doesn't say we have to remember our dreams for God to seal his instruction on our heart. Right. But then the other place represents kind of the throwaway place, the place where most people don't want to go because it's a mess, it's trashed. We don't see a whole lot of value there. It's just an abandoned place, but it's really like an abandoned secret place. And then outside is where there's this just, oak tree sized broccoli. It's literally a superfood. And it's something that's growing in great abundance. So the long and the short of it, I think, is don't ignore your dreams.
Yeah, I'm trying to write all of them down that I can remember, and sometimes I don't remember them, but I know I've dreamed all night long, and then during the day I will pray and ask God to remind me my dreams, and then sometimes I'll actually start remembering them.
I always tell people if you don't remember them, write them down anyway.
Okay. You sound like my husband, John.
Right.
Oh.
But yeah, no, sometimes once we even just sit our minds to sit down and bring something to remembrance and to want to recall, it'll come back. And so that's what I actually mean by that, though.
Yeah.
But
Right. Well, thank you guys.
yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming on.
You bet.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Let's do Anne Marie.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Somebody in the chat said we had to eat more broccoli.
Kim.
That's what I got from that dream. And yeah, you should definitely do your dreams, John. I thought what you posted yesterday was really cool when you had sort of 3 in the row. It sort of had a common theme to it to me. So
Nice.
I had a dream and I wrote it down. It was just last night, and I was being chased, and I all of a sudden instead of being on the ground, I was elevated, and I looked down and it was an animal, but it had the face of one of my old childhood friends that I'm no longer in touch with. And then, so I had elevated, but I was then all of a sudden in one of those alleyways with like everything was brick and little restaurants, a nice little area. And I was being chased again. I didn't know by who. And all of a sudden I'm in one of the restaurants. I'm captured and I'm in one of the restaurants and I'm sitting on the bar stool, and like the bartender, like the bar area is behind me. And I'm captured by this brother and sister who actually look very innocent. And the father and the mother come to see, like they captured me. And I said to the parents, I said, aren't you ashamed of your children because they go after and they're capturing the souls of good people? And they said, no, we're actually proud of them that they're capturing the souls of good people. And the 5 of them were in front of me, or the 4 of them were in front of me, and there was a 5th person. I don't know who that was. and they were all very proud of themselves, but they literally looked like the nicest family that you could find. And I'm sitting on the bar stool, and I just start screaming, help, 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 help. And I could see the door kind of being slightly ajar to the outside. And I could tell people were hearing me and they were going to come and rescue me.
Interesting. So you've been around a while. What were your thoughts on that?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't, I thought it was, somebody said, did something happen with best friend in the past? Yeah, but nothing like soul crushing stealing. Well, the only thing I thought of is when, I think was it just last week? I think when Carrie was talking a lot about the church, one thing that it reminded me of that, how I was raised Catholic, so there was always like families in the big pews or big families in pews. They always looked like good people to me. That was the only thing that I could think of, is that I don't necessarily view things on for the church. That's not really my perspective, like on what the church is doing or not per se, but it kind of felt like not like wolves in sheep's clothing, but just the facade that these people might be churchgoers. Yeah, and I am a lawyer, slip away. You might remember that. But I thought it was interesting that I do feel like I'm in sort of a warfare lifestyle because of the stances I've taken as a lawyer. And there's a bit of, I feel like I'm being a little bit attacked, or a lot of it attacked by people, because I'm outspoken against not just how things have happened with COVID, but other things that are happening in companies with the, not to be too political, with some of that DEI and the initiatives that divide, and I feel that are deceitful and things like that.
Yeah.
But I was glad to know that it wasn't that hard for me to just start. But in the dream, I was really loud about saying help, help, help. But I was confident that help was right outside the door, even though I feel alone a lot of times.
Okay. So go back to the beginning part of the dream.
So it was like I was being chased. So I was on the ground. I was being chased by like a bull with, but it was the face was of one of my friends from like 30 years ago.
Where were you? Were you in, first of all, were you in like your business suit, or were you just don't know what you were wearing, or?
No, there wasn't anything distinguishable about what I was wearing.
Were you in a field that you were being chased by a bull?
I was in the field. I was in a field at first, a grassy field. But then I slowly but surely, all of a sudden, I was sort of up, and I could see this being with my friend's face on it. And she couldn't see me anymore. This thing couldn't see me anymore.
Wow. Okay.
But then it just switched to being in that alleyway with the bricks, and it was one of those cute, how they have in cities renovated little, Wall Street, they have those little renovated areas where they have bars and restaurants and coffee shops, and it's cute. So I was there. So it was kind of a nice environment.
Wow.
And then I was captured, but I don't really remember. But I was still being chased, and then so it was no longer my
by the bull?
two people. No, by these. I didn't know who it was. I think I got rid of the bull, and then it was like, but I was still being chased. I didn't know until I was captured, and I was in the. It's funny, I live in Dallas now. Somebody said grassy knoll. And then I'm in the bar, and I'm sort of facing my captors.
And So you were in a bar, like a drinking bar, not like
Yeah.
the bar association. And you were facing your captors. Who were they? Did you get to see them?
Yeah, that was the two young people. They were like in their 20s. They were blonde. They looked really not like very nice people. They captured me, and then their parents came from either side of them to join them to see like what they captured, which was me. And then I chastised the parents because I said, I can't believe, are you proud of, because they looked like nice people too. And I said, are you proud of your son and daughter for capturing the souls of good people, is what I said, the souls of good people.
Wow.
And they said, yes, we are proud of that. That's like what we do. That's what our family does. And they were all in front of me, blonde, pretty, blue eyes, the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the Chased by a Bull. I did feel the Wall Street thing. I was thinking of the Wall Street Bull. And that totally resonates. And to me represents the idea of a lot of the division in America right now. And probably a lot of the lawsuits are coming from the financial world because they have, the score, the DEI or whatever score. And so then you have the Bud Lights and the Disneys and the Targets, and they're doing all this crazy social stuff. And it's mainly BlackRock and Vanguard. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to cause a revolution in this country by creating division. They're not doing anything to include. They're doing everything to tear down and tear apart over and over and over again, including tearing down these companies that, used to have good names and were built by good people, that they're just ripping to shreds for their agenda, which is basically to destroy America. And so what's happening is we have in a broad sense, this is not everybody, but in a broad sense, a next generation that has very little discernment. And these are the college kids who are out marching, pro-Palestinian, pro-terrorist kind of a thing. I understand. So there's two sides to any particular argument or conflict, and we're not going to get into this or that, but I'm just saying, it's like they're checking their brains at the door. They're acting like they're completely 100% brain dead. And they're looking to either the masses of popular culture or these woke Wall Street companies or the media that is so long bereft of any idealistic truth-telling capability. Like they're blatantly 100% liars, the media, in broad sense. Again, I don't even care what side you're on. Whether you like the guy that's ranting away about the left and he's the right, it's not news. It's a talk show. It's rants. It's, they're not, these people are becoming programmed zombies. They're an indoctrinated next generation. And so they're the ones that capture you. They're the ones that are trying to limit free speech. They're the ones that are trying to censor. It's the technocrats, the tech companies. It's these people that are in the streets marching and saying that we shouldn't have the rights to do whatever it is we want to do. And I guess they don't teach history anymore. But most of the colleges, a lot of the colleges that I've seen, a lot of the education that people are getting in colleges, isn't worth the toilet paper in their bathrooms. I mean, it really isn't, because it's so much watered down garbage and social engineering and cultural. It's not diversity, it's cultural division is what they're trying to create. There's nothing about, if it was about diversity, then they would accept Christians as willingly as they accept Muslims or witches or anybody else, but that's not in there. So it's not diversity when it's not everybody. So it's never been about trying to include everybody. It's been about trying to run people off of their, from having a voice, especially a voice of righteousness, or like in your field, a voice of justice. They're not interested in justice in large sense. I'm not, again, condemning every college. The mainstream media deserves to be condemned 100%. Absolutely, they do. I think, can we call out better for the mainstream media. I think better is going to be when most of the mainstream media companies go entirely bankrupt. They're bought by new people that are completely outside of the system, that are not Mockingbird patrons and puppets, and that they begin to do a whole new radical thing. And then they're going to have to, unfortunately, they're going to have to work very, very hard for anybody to ever listen to them again and work back the trust of the American people. Yeah. CNN, MSNBC, a lot of Fox News, I equate exactly with Jerry Springer at this point. I mean, that literally, I only turn it on when I want to be amused and I want to hear what people are ranting about currently, just because I'm out of most of the rants. And frankly, if you get on X or Twitter, it's pretty much the same way too. It's just back and forth division and information warfare. So we're in a time where there isn't a lot of truth. In fact, there's very little truth. And you as an attorney represent truth. You represent justice. You represent the founding principles of this nation, which is the U.S. Constitution. And it's what's supposed to be the background of the American justice system. Cue in hilarious laughing now, because that's even with the Trump indictments and the January 6th and, the pharmaceutical. I mean, take your pick which field you want to look at. It's an absolutely bloody abortion of justice is what's happening in America right now. So, but what these people want to do is they want to capture somebody that would fight for truth and justice and even freedom and liberty. And they want to basically try to take your soul. I mean, I think it's interesting how you said it, that, they're way beyond pushing an agenda. They're trying to take souls. They're trying to, and it's all distraction. But I like the fact that you ended up facing them and then you realized that it was the kids that were the ones chasing you and capturing you, but you looked to the parents and said, are you proud of your kids? And they were. Which again shows that it's a multi-generational dilution of thought in America. It's not just the fact that the kids don't have the level of discernment to even critically reason their way out of a wet paper bag, but their parents have checked out. They've checked out and they've kind of lived their own lives and chased money and done all these other things. They haven't raised their kids to be able to understand things like truth and justice. And there's a reckoning coming. We are on an absolutely unsustainable course. And it's clear that the left in particular and the people that are pushing these agendas, they want a war in America. That's what they want. They want division. These are the same companies, the Soros funded, DAs. These are the companies that, put piles of bricks in the streets and then bring in busloads of people to do things like be pro-Palestinian protesters. Thankfully, I don't know if I could say most, but a lot of the kids in America aren't that stupid. They literally have to bust these people in. They have to get them to cross the border. They have to get politicians that they can pay and buy to drop the border, let these people in, bust them to democratic cities, and then, and then bust them to places that they want to create a stir. And then the media gets there and pretends like everybody in America thinks this way, and it's not. Almost all of that entire process, from the politicians themselves to the people in the buses, to the people coming across the border, to the people running the cities, to the people reporting on what's allegedly happening in America, are all paid actors. So I think it's interesting that even though it feels like we're overwhelmed and it feels like we're cornered, we're actually far and away the majority in America. And, hopefully the shooting doesn't start. But if it does, they're going to find out real quick who's on what side. And, anybody that I walk around the street and talk to, or I'm on a plane with, or whatever, they don't think like anything that the media is telling us is happening day in and day out, and all these crazy ideas and these woke people and these pushing their pronouns. And like, maybe they go to your church. They don't go to my church. I haven't seen anybody like that. I don't run into these people on a regular basis. And I've gone out of my way at times to try to find some of these people just to have a interesting conversation. And, they're all sound bites. They're all scripted social media stuff. They're all people that are, going to college campuses to stir up these kind of discussions. And then they pretend like, this is what everybody thinks. It's not what everybody thinks, but I do think that it's interesting that they're trying to trap you. And I do like the fact that you put the onus on the parents and ask the parents if they feel proud of the mess that their kids have been in. So I think it speaks to your calling and your destiny. I think you're called to fight the bull. Bull is a double entendre. It means bull, but it also means the woke forces of financial who hold the purse strings for a very limited time, because the transfer of wealth is going to happen and God is going to take all of their money away. And these companies are going to go bankrupt. And by the way, you don't want to be funding these companies. You don't want to have your 401k and your IRA and all of that in BlackRock and Vanguard. And if you're investing in those companies, even one penny, take it as a warning, get the heck out now, because God's judgment is going to come on those companies for sure. And we're already seeing it on the Disneys of the world. I did a little bit of research because a friend had a dream on media. And it was interesting that, people say, well, Disney lost 29 billion since they started this woke stuff. No, they didn't. They lost 214 billion since March 6th of 2021, which was after this was the post-COVID recovery. And it was the peak that their market cap was ever at, was like $364 billion. And now it's down to like 150. So 214 billion, 2/3 of the wealth of that company is gone. And this was as of like 2 months ago, and it's continued on a downward trend and probably will. So the people that are supposedly running the stocks and trying to throw their weight around in those companies, it's like the Bud Light thing. They're running them into the ground. So it's not a money play. We know it's not a money play because money people aren't that dumb. They're not doing it for the money. They're doing it because they want to cause an agenda, or they want to destroy a nation, or they want to pick a fight, or they're being paid off by somebody else at a much, much, much higher level, which could also be the case.
Yeah, thanks, Monica. Thanks, everyone. I guess I too want to say I feel very alone in this. Like, you guys get it, but you would be amazed. So I moved to Dallas and I live in an apartment complex. So a lot of the kids that I meet, and I think I'm talking 20-year-olds, they're kids to me. They're very nice, but they have that energy. I think you guys are bringing that to my attention. They have that energy of, they're just not very bright. They just aren't getting this. And I do blame the parents, of course, which would be more my age. And as you guys know, I'm job searching, and I refuse what I said. And again, this is, I think, a download from God. I'm not looking for the devil's spare change. I want God's bounty when it comes to money and a job. And I said, I don't do something totally different, but I can't work as a lawyer for these companies like I worked for the hospital system. I can't do that. I literally know I can't even physically do that. So it's been really hard, and it's been I was complaining about social isolation, being isolated because of COVID, and now I'm isolated because of these beliefs. And you would just not be, it's just surprising to me that the legal profession, which should be easily the biggest profession, to just be like, hey, we're here for the Constitution. This is literally our reason for being, that I should never be alone in this. And there are lawyers that are litigating. They are litigating cases, America First cases, but they're not strategic. They're not doing anything preventative. They're not in the companies. And even the nicest ones, even the more conservative ones, not the real conservative ones, they are like, no, don't say anything wrong about the DEI stuff. And I'm like, but literally, if you're a lawyer and your client is a company, it is not in your client's best interest to have DEI programs. Like, it's just mind-boggling to me, and that I'm all of a sudden alone in my thinking, where I think it's it's just how I was taught. So I will just leave on this. I think that legal education, not just the Ivy League legal education, I think that they've been teaching a social justice progressive lawyering, not what I was taught in the 90s.
Mhm.
So that concerns me. And I think that too is like, that would be my generation, like who's doing the teaching? It's not those kids.
Have you looked
So
up Fired Up Tech's lawyer?
yeah.
Okay, good.
And he litigates and he
Yeah.
litigates. And I
They're
know
building a whole network of America's frontline lawyers, and they're in Texas. In fact,
yeah.
he's in Dallas, as you know. So that would be a crew to connect with for sure.
Yeah, I just follow him. He doesn't know me. I just follow him. But we
I
haven't
can
had a
connect you if you need to. Send me an email.
Okay.
I know his right-hand person. She's a longtime friend of mine and a dream interpreter. So
Okay. Awesome.
but
Okay. Well, I think everybody wants to hear a dream from you next, John.
okay.
Just shouting.
All right. Well, thanks for being on, Ian.
Okay, thank you.
Good to talk to you.
You too.
Happy Thanksgiving. All right. Well, let's do two things I want to tell you guys about before I do a dream. One is we launched a new course. It's a brand new course. I'm super excited. It's the first course we've ever done for dreamers, and I want to show you that right now. What would it look like to go deeper and hear more from the Father? Imagine having more dreams, more clarity, more recall, and more divine guidance. How would this impact your walk with God? Would it accelerate your relationship, help you move into your identity and destiny at an increased pace? Announcing Supercharge Your Dream Life. You can have an explosion in your seer ability. Closer, deeper, clearer talks with the Father are one decision away. Join us in this adventure designed for such a time as this and unlock the treasure God has for you. So that's available on Dream Life Decoded. It's 75% off right now for, I think, the next week or two. We're doing a Black Friday special this week being Thanksgiving week. It's the first course I ever did with like 90% of it was all your input, because it was people saying, hey, what if I don't dream? What if I can't remember my dreams? What about this? What about that? And so we took a bunch of questions, and we even asked y'all for questions related to dreams that we just haven't really answered in like Dreams Through the Bible or in some of the other things that we've done. And and so we put that course together. Super excited about it. Excited about the way it turned out. It's like $49 right now, so it's incredibly affordable for anybody. But it's specifically about the whole idea of dreaming. And I got into some stuff, like I got Holy Spirit inspired on a few things, and I went some places that I didn't think I was going to go, and ended up teaching a little bit out of some other scriptures that we haven't even used yet about the secrets that are in dreams and all of that stuff. So anyway, love that we got that done and out for this Christmas season. The other thing that I want to tell you about is SIM. You all know SIM. You all are familiar with SIM. I'm going to play the SIM commercial just real quick for you. But the Spiritual Intelligence Mentorship is like the flagship product that we have. And by the way, I never started out to do a course company. We're not a training company. Dream Life Decoded exists to let people know that God still speaks through dreams. The spiritual intelligence side of what we do exists because we want to provide leaders with the best information available. And we believe that it is spiritual intelligence that comes through dreams. We have a good amount of people working with us that have been walking with us and have been trained analysts for a number of years, but we need more people. The only way we can get more people is to train them with our stuff, because there isn't anybody else out there that we've found that even comes remotely close to the depth that we go to in dreams. Like we take words apart. We've provided, tips to federal law enforcement and 3-letter agencies when necessary, and work with people that either were running for office or prime minister in other countries or governors or people that advise the president of the United States, things like that. So you can't be fluffy on your information. You got to be times, dates, locations. You got to get stuff from the Holy Spirit through a dream that is next level. And you have to be able to write things and put them together in an intelligence dossier or a dream report. So we designed that entire course. Again, most of you have already heard of SIM. The reason I'm telling you this now is I don't think we've ever put SIM on a part of a Black Friday special. There's a bundle on our Black Friday special that includes SIM, and we've never done that. Most people will say, don't ever put your flagship product, as part of a deal like that. But we wanted to because there's so many people that want to do SIM. We're going to start the course in probably mid to the end of January. It'll be probably the 15th or the 22nd. We're just still confirming which date we're going to start. But think about that now. And for the next 2 weeks for Black Friday, it's on an incredible special. And so let me show you what that looks like if you've never seen that before. We live in a world with much confusion, propaganda, and outright lies. It's hard to know what's real, what's false, and what's really going on. Do you have even one source that you can trust? And I mean really trust. Can you imagine leading a state or an army or a nation in this environment? What if you heard from God every day about your life, your purpose, and your future, and you understood with clarity what to do? Imagine hearing so clearly that he even trusted you with intelligence to advise leaders desperate for answers. Hi, I'm John Redenbo, and I have the honor of leading the Spiritual Intelligence Mentorship, an in-depth program where a team of people work with you in a highly structured atmosphere to teach you how to decode the encrypted language of God through dreams. If you're up for the challenge, I invite you to apply today. Register at spiritualintel.com. All right. Again, the best time of the year if you want to get involved in SIM is right at the start of the year. Okay, so as promised, I'm going to share a very short dream, and then we'll get back to your dreams. That's not it. Okay. So this one's interesting. This one is about a friend of mine and somebody that many of you would know if I named her. I'm not going to name her because I didn't ask if I could name her. I did send her the dream, but it's somebody that's part of our community. And this is the dream. I was driving down a Franklin Road, which, Franklin, Tennessee, there's a road called Franklin Road. I was driving down that road near a dog park. And there's actually a dog park. They have this huge ranch that part of it's a dog park, and people can go park and let their dogs run free on this massive horse ranch. But it was right where the road transitions from like the whole horse farm area into like going into the main part of the tiny little downtown that is Franklin. I saw a big billboard with this lady speaking in front of a massive crowd of thousands of people. And what's interesting, it's not what she does for a living at all. But it was like a nighttime setting, and she was like on a stage. I think there was somebody else with her. And you could just see it was kind of dark because it was, like dark blue or, muted as far as the colors of the crowd. But you could just see that it was a nighttime setting. And so it was dark, but there was thousands and thousands of people in this picture. Was mostly dark, but it had her name on it. It had the name of the lady. And It had the name of the lady, and it said announcing that she was speaking at a big event soon. She looked the way she does now, and was big time. Like she was like beyond the keynote. She was like the only speaker. Like when you see like Tony Robbins comes to Florida or whatever, it was that kind of a thing. Or Les Brown. It was like a headline. The billboard only mentioned her as the speaker, like it was just her event and not her with others. And when I say she looked the way she did now, it wasn't like it was like, well, 10 years down the road. No, it was like, she could have walked onto the stage today. And so I thought that was really interesting. So who's got something for me? Increase. Joey, you want to take a stab at it?
Well, it would kind of help if we knew who it was, wouldn't it?
It sure would. And you know her.
Well, I would figure I would if she's in our community, but
she was up in Moravian Falls with us.
Well, that really narrows it down, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Shelly, help me out here.
Light up the comments, guys, if you have any thoughts on this. It was just basically driving down a road next to a ballpark, and saw, a big billboard with this lady's name on it and her on a stage speaking to thousands of people. I could tell that it was not years in the future, but it was kind of now, and that she was like the main, it was like her event. She's not a speaker in real life. She may have done a level of speaking, but I don't think, is it possible a prophetic dream for someone or showing you what's coming for her? I did kind of get that sense a little bit. Good question. It was positive, was kind of like maybe like a motivational kind of a speaker, but like a paid big time speaker. I don't know what she was speaking on or what her agenda was. This might be seeing the impact she has. Yeah, I like that. That's good, Carrie. That's really good. Was dark. Maybe the economy was dark when we inherit the earth. Interesting. Yeah. God might want you to listen to this lady. She would wholeheartedly agree. Absolutely. And I do listen to her. She gives great advice and counsel to me on certain things. Somebody I've worked closely with. God could be, all right, here we go. God could be showing that this is coming. He has big plans for us. Is she in education? Look at you trying to narrow down who it is.
Yeah, I think I already know who that is too.
A new calling for her. I feel like you were supposed to tell her this dream and speak it into life. Already done. Actionable intelligence, check. I heard what Carrie said. She has a message so big, it's on a billboard. Interesting. I sent her a text and I told her it's a sign. That was my interpretation because it's a billboard. She was not amused.
It's interesting too that it's by the dog park where our loyal friends are. So it's near to that. It's surrounded by people that are loyal to her.
Yeah. People keep amening what Laurel said, which I think that I've been listening to some things that she's been saying lately that have fared very well. So she may represent SIM and increase exposure. I think she, in a way, she certainly does. Matey thinks it's her. look up her name, see if it has something meaning for you. I'll have to do that. Night setting associated with revelation. Yeah, definitely. Her circle of influence is going to explode shortly. Yes, a sign. And it's for you and your increase. I like that. Loyalty. Yep. Nighttime and receiving revelation. I heard loyalty. Matey still thinks it's her. Just kidding, Matey. Matey said it's not her. And it's not Clorinda. But that was good. I like those. You guys did good. I think it's a couple people in the comments said moving from the rest stage to the big time from Tracy, and Karen said a big sign that cannot be ignored. And Sydney said, I can't get anything from this. Yeah, it's an interesting dream. Building up those around you. Amen. Shelley thinks it's her. Matey thinks it's Shelley. Just kidding. I love the idea Joey has of it being delivered to you near a dog park full with loyal friends. Yes, definitely. Definitely the whole loyal friend thing is a big part of it. And Franklin means freeholder of land. Wow. Okay. You guys exceeded my expectations on that. Thank you. What's the decode? Okay, it's not Matey. It's not Shelley. It's not Clorinda. I saw that too, that God is going to increase this person. I didn't catch the idea of the nighttime being revelation and representing dream life decoded and or spiritual intelligence. But this person definitely could be responsible in large part for the increase that we see. Especially, we feel like there's going to be a lot of people in January. We just feel like it's time that God is just going to unload. It's going to be the class to be in, because it's going to be like the first class when there was like 200 people. And we may have, well, we had to limit the Black Friday special to the first 50 on the sim side. But we'll see how it goes. But I wouldn't be surprised if we have a couple hundred, 100 or a couple hundred in January. I just feel like God is going to do something incredible. So yeah, while on your way to your destiny, you become aware. Yeah, I think so. I think it's somebody that's going to add value to our organization and already does, but somebody that's a trusted, loyal friend. I did think it was interesting, the idea that they have a really big message for me. They've shifted me in my way of thinking on a few things. So, yeah. Oh, Franklin Mint, which means unique and collectibles. The message is unique. Think bigger. Shelley thinks it's Matey. Carrie thinks it's Shelley. Matey says it's Joey. Horse Ranch. So, yeah. Anyway. But yeah, that was good. I like that. I got a lot out of that. And I can let this person know as well. I already have the dream that you all interpreted it. And we'll see what it says. I agree. I don't think there's anything you guys said that I didn't agree with. So, all right. Moving on. Let's bring in Elaine.
Oh, hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm visiting you from Australia.
All right.
Yeah, so I live in Victoria, Australia. My pastor, I had a dream and I gave it to him, and it was for the church. And he said that we probably wouldn't find out what it meant until after it happened. And I went, no, I don't want that. I want to know what this means. I want to find out and do more, because God's been ramping up dreams a lot more lately. So yeah, I'm really determined to learn to interpret. So I had this dream on the 1st of the 8th, so August this year. I'm a worship leader, so we were setting up for worship, and I took a black power board across the stage to the left for the pastor to he plays guitar, for the pastor to plug in if he needed it. Then I looked out and people were starting to come into the sanctuary and they're all excited, and yeah, it was the
So wait a
normal
minute, start
week 3.
over. Can
Yep.
you start over? You're a worship leader.
Yes.
And so start the dream over, if you would, please.
Okay, so the dream was done on the 1st of the 8th, 2023. So
Okay.
August on the 1st.
8/8.
Yeah. And I took a black power to plug into a power board.
A cord?
Right stage.
Okay.
To the left of me of the stage for the pastor to plug into if he needed it, if required. Just being ready. Then the people started to flow into the sanctuary, and they're all excited, and the hugs and the greeting, which was great. But in my mind, I knew that this lady that I came and chatted to, that she was from another church where she had a little bit of a chip on her shoulders. She hadn't been recognised for the work that she'd done for the kingdom. And she said something to me. I can't remember what it was that she said to me, but her daughter answered on her behalf. And the reply that she gave her daughter, in my head, I'm going, no, that's false. That's false humility. That's not real. And then I turned around from the greeting people, went back towards the stage, and I could see all these, because we don't have a choir at church, all this choir of children, absolutely beautiful. They had red garments on with what looked like the Christmas holly leaves with the white berries. I mean, I know I need to take, I really need to take stock of what I see in dreams. I've learnt that so much so far. Anyway, so the holly leaves, white berries, there were 21 of them. So I counted them, 21. All right. Then I looked across the stage. I'm nearly there. I looked across the stage, and on the stage were these babies. Now, babies were in like a raft, a cocoon. There were 4 in that, all wrapped up like in little papooses in the raft. But then either side of it, like it was in a arrow. So one on the left, one on the right, just singular, sitting on the stage. And one of the babies started to cry in the middle of the in the boat sort of thing, the raft. And the one that was on the left-hand side of the the arrow, I was just really concerned because it was really close to the edge of the stage. So I thought, oh my goodness, I raced forward to position that child back safely onto the stage, and then I woke up. Now, the same day I had that dream, we were to get ready for playgroup for the children at the church. I went to buy, and I'm asking God all this way, what does the dream mean? What is it? What's the interpretation? And I found a gold cross on the ground, upside down. And I lifted it up off the ground, if I'm not leaving that there, picked it up, turned it over, and it was coloured in red resin. And the resin it nearly filled it completely, except for the very, very centre of the cross. A little bit down the cross itself was gold in the centre, but it was on the length of the cross, not where the T intersection is. It sort of ran a little bit at the top to a little bit at the bottom, and that's all I have. But I do believe God was saying something through all of it with me that day.
Did you say how many babies there were?
6.
6 babies, 21 kids and 6 babies.
Yep.
Interesting.
I mean, what I've gauged so far, because I have done a little bit of research, 21 is manifest presence, the number. 6, of course, well, you got the number of man, 6. So, yeah. But I didn't know what the black power board was about. And, well, humility within the church. But I just want what's God trying to say through all of that.
Yeah.
Plus the cross, you know. The cross is, you know, if it's down and it's all gold when it's down, does that not show humbleness? But when you turn it over, it's like we're nearly all fully covered by the blood. But you know, when will the gold show through at the end? You know, I don't know.
So the cross was in real life after you woke up, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, fortunately, we have Joey here, who's a professional dream interpreter. So.
Oh, the power boards. The power boards are more or less over here. Most of our power boards have got about like 4 to 6 plugs in them. Then
It's like
it wasn't one. Probably would have been about 6 power plugs to go into the power board.
Okay, so it wasn't a cord; it was a power board.
A power board.
A power board. Okay. Power strip.
like a power strip where you can plug in. Or,
Yeah.
Yeah. Surge protector type of thing.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, power strip. Got it.
Yeah.
We probably call them different things here in Australia to what you do. So sorry about that.
That's all right. You guys say it better. We like your accent.
Thank you.
All right. What do you got, Joey?
I'm just hearing little bits here and there. So the red robes on the children in the choir, I heard that they're covered in the blood. The arrow. So the babies were shaped like that. They were sitting like that in the shape of an arrow. Is that?
Well, not that it was joined. The like that for the down bit, and then the babies were sort of either side, about that far apart. But when you looked at it straight on, it looked like an arrow.
Interesting.
I think it's interesting that what is it? Psalm says, like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth, and a quiver full is 5. But if you have 5 in your quiver and 1 in your bow, that would be 6.
And they're pointing the way.
They're pointing the way. Well, I think the power thing at the beginning, I saw that as backup power, meaning you're going to need more power, meaning God is going to release whatever you're doing on stage. You said you're a worship leader?
Yeah.
So there's going to be more power coming from, because you brought it up on stage just like it was like an extra, like a backup in case we need it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I feel like God is saying you're going to need more power.
Okay.
Also, you're going to have more power accessible and available to you. Our resident Aussie in the crowd says yes, she agrees. Spear, arrows, preparing warriors, hostages. That's interesting. The church doesn't believe the power of God is for now, but believes in the power of man. So yeah, I saw the 888 a lot of times references new beginnings. So you had it on 8-1 or 8-8?
The 1st of August.
The 1st of August. Okay.
Yeah.
So the 1st of the month representing new beginnings. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so you brought in the black power cord, which means you would have more power available to you should you need it. So that's preparing for more output. If you need more power, it's typically because you're plugging more things in. You have, whether it's more instruments or amplifiers or whatever. There's more that you're going to need. Also, of course, in the event that something else goes out, but I feel like it's in the event of an expansion, like it would double the size of the people on the stage, but not necessarily because you didn't see the people doubling. What you saw is needing more power. So the ability for the power that comes from the ministry that happens on the stage. And again, I feel like particularly in worship, because when you have the pastor on stage, you got one mic. It's not that big of a deal. But when the whole worship band is on stage, that's typically when you're digging into the power. So as people were flowing in, there was this lady that had a chip on her shoulder. Her daughter makes a comment, and you saw it as false humility.
Yeah.
So I feel there's a juxtaposition between being ready for more power. You're ready on stage for more power, which like more love, more power, like God, bring us more power. You're ready on stage for more power, but the people in the crowd are not necessarily positioned. They're in this like, oh no, it's okay. They're in this false humility stuff. They're not, they're acting out of a place that's not authentic. That's really probably the best way to describe false humility, is they're acting out of a place that's not authentic. So you were done greeting and you turned around and you went back towards the stage, and that's when you saw the choir of children, 21 kids in red garments with white berets, and then the 6 babies. And you said they looked like they were in like a cocoon, like they were just wrapped up real tight.
Yep.
Okay. And what happened to the child on the left side that you had to like bring to safety?
Because I was just concerned that it would wake up and fall off the stage if it woke up and wriggled. So I went forward and picked up the baby and put it in a more secure position.
Okay. That's interesting. I feel like, wow. I want to say that correctly. It reminds me, I'm just going to say what I heard.
Okay.
This isn't necessarily on your church. It may apply, it may not apply. I heard that it was the next generation of the children in the desert that entered the promised land. When the spies went in, the 10 came out, gave a bad report. The 2 gave a good report. God said, okay, fine. You don't want to enter into the promised land? Do laps for 40 years. They do laps for 40 years. And everybody, including the 10 spies and everybody that came out of Egypt in that first generation, except the 2 spies that gave the good report and Joshua, died in the desert. And so the babies are the next generation, versus the people in the audience, who was this lady and her daughter who has a chip on her shoulder, resentment, a spirit of offense, and this daughter who's not being authentic, who's kind of fronting. She has this false humility thing. And it's like, they're not, I'm not saying those people in particular. Hear what I'm saying. I'm saying that generation, a church that chooses to be in a place of offense, that chooses to operate non-authentically, that choose to try to front and for them to be about themselves, just like pastors and leaders, prophets that are still into the man of power for the hour. Here's how many books I wrote. Here's the places I've taught. Here's all the people I've been on, to millions and millions. And, you get these guys up there that they just talk about themselves for the first half hour. And it's like, that's not the new wineskin. I don't know that those people are even going to enter into what God is doing in this next generation. Now, I see this particularly in the prophetic, frankly. But in your case, you're a worship leader. So I think it's really interesting that God is ready to bring in the backup power. Like he's ready to juice this thing. He's ready to light it up. Like presence falling in such a way that people are on their face, and you're not stopping because you did your 3 fast songs and 3 slow songs. Like that's not the program. The program is we're going to be here until the presence lifts. And if that's 14 days, that's fine. That's what the backup power is for. There's more power coming and you're ready for it. The people in the audience are not ready for it. So God has you turn around from the people and head back towards the stage. And now you see the ones that are prepared, the ones that are under the blood, that are covered in red, that have the white berries, which to me, the white berries reminds me of, and I know it's probably not a good juxtaposition, but this is what I heard. It reminds me of the wicks in the lampstand of the virgins that had the oil. So instead of those that are out there, wanting recognition, God's about to blow it up. And it's like, and I also hear that verse, the eyes of the Lord roam to and fro from the earth, looking whose hearts are fully his. Mm-hmm. So you had the backup power ready on the stage, and then you went out among the people to see what you see, to see whose hearts are fully his. You run into a spirit of offense and you run into false humility, and you're like, okay, I'm done greeting. I'm going to turn around and head back up to the stage. And then God shows you, here's the ones, here's the 21. Which reminds me of the 7,000, when Elijah said, am I the only one left? No, there are 7,000 who haven't bowed the knee. Here's 21 in the next generation who are ready to go. They're pure. They're washed in the blood. Their wicks are trimmed. They are, albeit they're kids, but they are going to be in the choir. They are going to be on stage singing with you. They're going to move forward. And then there's the babies, that they're the next generation that's going to be raised up in that new level of power, not raised by the spirit of offense, not raised in the authenticity and the false humility and the Jezebel, Leviathan, gossip, all the garbage that tends to go on in churches. They're going to be raised in the purity of the burning ones and the extra power that's going to come from the place of worship and the place of ministering before the Lord.
Now it's our church is 40 years this year. So that speaks volumes.
40 years. Wow. That goes to the time. Wow. Yeah. Again, I'm not, no condemnation against the people in the crowd, but God is clearly highlighting the ones that are going to be ready for the new level of power. God wants to bring what most people would call a spirit of revival, signs, wonders, an outpouring, a Holy Spirit outpouring to your congregation. I feel like it's going to be a movement that's going to come through worship. And it's something that God is giving you a heads up so you're ready for it. And it may also be partly like a revival broke out when I was 14 at my church, and it came through the kids. It was a youth group led movement. And it was great for a couple of weeks until the parents got kind of jealous of the fact that God was using the kids to heal everybody and, for stuff to happen through the kids. And then that kind of, it's that whole jealousy, the stuff that you ran into out in the church. That's the kind of stuff that can put the kibosh on the new level of power in the Spirit of God. And I just feel like God is saying there's a new wineskin that I want you to release. And I feel like he gave the dream to you because it's going to be in large part through you and through your cohorts on worship that the presence is going to fall, because that's what he inhabits, right? He doesn't inhabit the preaching. He inhabits the praises of his people, and nothing against preaching, of course. But I feel like when you see these movements of, like I was up at Asbury for like 2 weeks, it wasn't a movement marked by great preaching. It was very, very simple preaching. They just kept giving an altar call, basically. But what it was marked by was incredible worship, but it wasn't like professional Nashville style worship. It wasn't the recording artists. It was just humble kids that were playing, and the presence of God showed up, and it was amazing. Yeah. But it's going to be that power. It's going to come through authenticity, and by the way, I feel like what's happening on the stage is the opposite from what's happening in church. So that's a warning, not a heavy warning, but just a warning for the worship team. Don't operate in false humility. Don't operate in a spirit of offense. Don't have a chip on your shoulder. Go there to serve the Lord and to usher in the presence of God, and be ready for that next level of power to come in. And I feel like God is letting you know, so you can even let the pastor know. And if they see, if you guys see fit, let the whole church know, because maybe the people in the church can change their attitude and be ready for what's coming. But I feel like it's going to be mainly an outpouring for the next generation.
Yeah. Well, it's the remnant of, we were a big church after COVID. There's only a remnant that came back. We have a new pastor with new people. Things are changing, definitely, but a lot more children, and I'm really pleased about that.
Wow. So that whole idea of the remnant and the 40 years really, wow, I had no idea.
Really speaks.
Wow.
Yeah. Very powerful.
That's amazing.
And just so that you know,
Uh-huh.
I actually heard from God your name through Diana Larkin. She mentioned you, that she'd gone to you with a dream that she had, and I went, got to get that man's name, got to find out what he does. So yeah, God led me to you that way. So praise the Lord.
Wow. Well, I love Diane. She's amazing. And thank you
Yeah.
so much for looking us up. We're on pretty much every Tuesday. And
I know what time now, because I was straight in today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wow. Well, thanks for coming on. Gosh, it's so good
thank you.
to meet you and to hear from you. And what a powerful dream, Elaine. I just bless you with that interpretation, and we just seal it that God would bring it to pass, that the extra power would be there, that the next generation would be prepared, and God would even give the remnant that's still left the time to prepare their hearts and to be right in that place to handle the outpouring that's coming to your church.
I agree.
And I think just not your church. I think it's all of Australia too.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
starts.
Yeah, God gave me a song years ago that he was going to pour his fire down from the mountain, and that all eyes would see the glory of the Lord, that the fire would purge and drive away the darkness, setting all the captives free. So my heart's cry has been that, God, you're going to send it down, because we're up in the mountains, and that he'd send it from here and he'd send it out. So a lot of prayer and time gone in, but to get that dream and now to get this, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Elaine. Thanks for being on. Gosh, that was amazing. We just we're going to kind of say la on that. Everybody's like, Carrie's from Australia too here. She says she loves that. But yeah, wow. I'm so glad you came on.
Thank you.
Come on anytime. We appreciate you.
I appreciate it. I will if I have another dream.
Okay. All right. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wow. That was powerful.
It was an amazing dream.
I love that. So good. All right. Let's do Karen. Hi, Karen.
Hi. I had a dream on, it was September 14th, and I'm just going to try to read it here. I'm in a house. It was like an older style, but I was in the kitchen cooking, making something, and my family was in the living room. I felt like they were decorating for something. I think it was Christmas. And my daughter-in-law, Allison, came into the kitchen and told me to go look outside. So I went out of the kitchen, I turned to the left and went into the living room, the family area. And there was a big picture window that's facing the road. And it was like a gravel road in front of it. And there's heavy white snow coming down. And I said that I think, my granddaughter May will like it. But when I'm looking out the window, I seen a truck go by. It was all red, and it turned into the driveway on the left side of the house, but it was all red. And the back of the truck was cylinder shaped, like for liquids. But it wasn't like a milk truck. It was smaller than that, but it definitely carried liquid. It was all red. And then the scene changed. And it's in the same type of house, but it was an older style. But the layout was the same. And someone walked in the front door, and they're carrying a big heavy duffel bag for someone. But there was a small child laying on the couch. Now here, the couch is right in front of that picture window because it's the same layout of the house, and it's an older couch. And the child was facing the back of the couch, so their back would have been to the people. They were facing kind of like the inside of the couch. and it looked like they looked sad. I felt like they didn't know anyone. They didn't know the people there. The child didn't. There was a like a Spanish speaking woman in the kitchen, and she was making something on the stove with my sense was it was like raspberries, but it looked like teeny tiny little red berries on clusters, and she broke off a few pieces and put them in her mouth to taste it. And then she took a small cluster out and she broke off some of the berries and she took it to the child laying on the couch. She reached kind of over the child and put them in the child's mouth. My sense for some reason was that she felt like the berries would make them happy or make them not afraid. Someone else said they wanted some of the berries too, and that was the end of that dream. And then later I heard, or afterwards I heard just two words, Lodge Rock, and that's it.
What were the words?
Lodge Rock. I had to look it
Lodge
up. I
Rock.
didn't know if it was what it was either. It looked like it was like a rock, and I don't know if I have the definition with me, but it was in Antarctica.
Okay, you're a truck dreamer.
Yeah, you're right. Another truck.
Everybody's remembering you dream about trucks.
Yeah.
Okay, so people were decorating for Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
and this red truck drives by with the liquid in the back.
Yes.
Okay, and there was what happened with the truck after that? Anything?
That's when the scene kind of changed,
Okay.
and then it went to the other scene with the little girl that's laying on the couch.
She's
So was
laying on the couch, and then she gets up on the back of the couch, right? And is she looking out the big picture window?
She's laying my sense was like she's afraid. She doesn't know anyone. She's
Okay.
laying on the couch, but her back is facing everybody, so her face is
Oh,
towards
she's
the-
hiding. Yeah.
kind of like you can't see her face. But when the lady took the berries, and she kind of reached around her and put them in her mouth.
And then what happened?
Then that was kind of just like somebody else in the dream said, or I heard somebody else say that they wanted some of the berries too, but that was the end of that. And I was trying to pray about the connection between them, and the thought popped in my head about holly berries, but I know that these were really tiny, so I didn't know if that applied or not. But I was trying to I knew the style of the house was the same, but I didn't really, just trying to get the connection between the two.
So it's a dream about Holly Berry, you think?
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Is the truck like a propane truck? Like a truck that would
Yes.
carry? Okay.
That type, but yes, but not right. That would carry liquids in the back, but it was completely red. Everything was red. The cab, the back, it was solid red.
It's a fuel type of truck, just a smaller one. Mhm.
Yes.
Is there a particular kind of red tanker truck that carries certain types of fuel, or is red like a code for something in tankers? Anybody know?
I don't think so. Blue is kerosene, diesel's green.
What's
What
red?
was
I don't think there is anything for
Blue's
red.
kerosene and diesel's green.
Yeah, I've never seen a truck like that, but that doesn't mean there's not one out there.
Red Cross. That's interesting. Red Cross. Adrenochrome. Who wrote that?
That had crossed my mind too.
Yeah. Well, especially with the little girl
Mhm.
hiding and then feeding her red berries. Fire departments and water trucks. Okay. Lodge Rock is a low snow-capped mountain in the terra firma Islands. Lodge Rock reminds me of how he put, who was it? Elijah in the cleft of the rock. And then the fire came and the storm came and the wind came, and then he was in the still small voice. Oh, red berries as in red pilled. Interesting.
For that, yeah.
There's also red diesel.
What's red diesel? Is that diesel with red food coloring?
Basically, yeah, it's diesel with red dye in it to distinguish it from diesel that you can use on road. So it's off-road diesel that you would use in tractors and things like that, as opposed to what you can put in your truck to drive on the road.
Huh. Well, go
Yeah.
farm, girl. Sounds like you got a handle on this one.
I just know about red diesel.
You probably know more about berries than I do too. So
Don't eat every red berry, I can tell you that.
yep, red diesel is for farm use.
It's generally cheaper than, because it doesn't go through quite the same process.
So red diesel would be fueling the harvest, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you do the little girl stuff.
I'm just confirming what you said.
Holly said red trucks carry class 2 and 3 materials that are flammable. So what do you get with the little girl hiding?
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything on her. It's on your own paper, Texas.
Red diesel is not taxed. Well, I do think I like the idea of being red pilled. And I do feel like, and you guys have heard me say this before, it's interesting that I did mention adrenochrome, even though it certainly isn't something that we joke about, but I feel like there is a time coming when there's going to be so much exposure. It's almost going to be like, and God is silencing the liars. The liars are pretty much the media and those with the propaganda agenda. And we're working through a process of exposure, which is why they're losing credibility and they're being outed and their lifestyles are being outed. And, all of the perversion and the, bought out, working with government propaganda is happening because there's a process that's going on when there's going to be a real high level of exposure that's going to come, like kids walking out of deep underground military bases by the hundreds of thousands, that kind of exposure. And God doesn't want the lying voices to be able to gaslight the people so they can bury their head in the sand and pretend like it's not real. And so I tell people this is going to be a phase. I believe it's coming. It's what God has called the exposure war, where there's going to be so much exposure that people are going to wish that they didn't hear of the atrocities and the things that people in our government, people in our country have done to our own children on our own soil. That's where it's probably really going to hit the hardest, is that. And when it happens, people are going to be looking for any place to hide, and they're going to need to be forced to take the red pill. That's why I say it's like their eyelids are going to be cut off, not in a gross kind of torturous way, but just that you won't be able to look away. You're going to have to see it. You're going to have to know that, yeah, this happened. We let it happen. We let it happen on our watch. Yeah, 85,000 is a drop in the bucket. It's more like 500,000 a year. There's literally millions and millions and millions of missing children. And when this comes out, when all of this stuff comes out and what they've been doing with the kids, it's going to be hard, as it should be. It should be hard. And there's a lot of people that I think this is actually where I think the greatest revival with third grade awakening is going to happen, because third grade, great awakenings, a lot of times they're not in times of peace. They're not when everything is calm and everything is as normal. They were like, look what happened to church attendance after 9/11. People wanted to seek God. Well, if they start seeing the level of exposure of the atrocities of people in our own government. Let's just start there, let alone the media and Hollywood and sports and doctors and pharmacy and attorneys and the money industry. And it's so rampant right now, the corruption. And so much of it is coming out, but they continue to distract and gaslight at every turn. And what's going to happen is we're going to have to eat that red pill, and we won't be able to look away. And I think it's what's going to bring the healing. It's what's going to happen. And I think it's interesting that it was a little girl that you saw. That was the one that was hiding, was trying to turn away. But yeah, I do feel like there was something with like being set upon the rock. It reminded me what I said earlier with Elijah, right? There was the fire and the storm and the wind and then there was the still small voice. Well, all of that is what the exposure is going to be like. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. People are going to feel hopeless. They're going to feel incredibly, ridiculously depressed, as they should, period. Like, it's going to be the conviction of the Holy Spirit. And they're going to be like, what do we do? What do we do in the face of such evil that we've allowed to happen and to perpetrate in this country? And that's when people are going to turn to God and say, heal our land, heal our nation, heal our people, heal our kids. I do like the idea that Christmas could be a timestamp. I do think something very, very, very dramatic, I believe, is going to happen in this country between now and the election. Not at the election, before the election. So this would be the last Christmas between now and whatever that event is. And we just see this in a lot of dreams and a lot of spiritual intelligence, that things are not anywhere close to what they seem. The stuff that everybody's talking about in the news and in the media is not where things are at. Things are completely different. And I don't come on and say, well, I got a guy in Intel that says that this is going to happen and that, I find, unfortunately, most of those people aren't credible. If you can't tell me your sources, don't even bother talking. And most of the time they say things, it doesn't come to pass over and over and over again. And then they try to explain away why it hasn't come to pass. That's why we look at dreams. We look at dreams and we say, God, show us the truth of the world and tell us what's about to happen and what's going to happen. And he gives us dreams. I mean, this dream seems like nothing. You probably hesitated to even share it because it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of juice to it. But I do believe in three things. I believe that if the red truck represents two things. It represents the fuel for the harvest, but it also represents the blood of the innocents that's crying out. And it's going to come right in front of our face. We're going to see it. The level of that mess is going to be exposed. And then the little girl represents the travesty of kids, particularly little girls that have been taken and kidnapped and what they've done with them. And we're going to have to learn about all of that. And the idea of wanting to look away, but needing to take take the medicine, take the red pill, and to really see what's going to happen, so that we can't just cover all this stuff up, pretend like it doesn't happen and move on. And we can't. That's why we'll never go back to normal. It's never going to be like, wow, we're just going to go back to pretend like our government hasn't tried to do all of these horrendous things and succeeded in large extent. It's the evil. There's a war coming, and the war is, and it's not a traditional war. The war is that the evil and the corruption will have to be routed from the land, period. We cannot continue with our federal institutions bought and paid for, with our elections bought and paid for, with our military, our medical systems, our financial system. Like it's unsustainable where we are. And I think the losing side knows that, which is why they're pushing harder right now to get away with as much as they can and to grab as much as they can, because they know that the day of reckoning is coming. It's coming hard. It's coming fast. And there's nothing that they can do to stop it. But I think for the average American, it's the person that just wants to have a quiet Christmas party. And outside the window, they see the truck, and inside the party, they're going to have to tell and explain to the next generation what happened on our watch.
The good news is that there's people also that want the red. They want to be red pilled. They want the berries. When they see the little girl get them, they want to know the truth.
Yeah, and it's how we get to the other side. It's how we get our country back. It's how we get the world back, as we get these bloodthirsty, depopulationists and Satanistic freaking pedophile Luciferians a ticket to go meet their their hero. Like that's how we do this. We deal with this with righteousness and justice, and a lot of it is going to be the Lord is positioning things to happen, and it's going to happen, and it's going to be very, very shocking for a lot of people. But if we keep our eyes on Jesus and we know what's coming, I don't think it has to be as shocking. Those who have refused to listen, those who haven't watched the signs, those who aren't pressing into God and knowing that this kind of stuff is coming, it's going to be really hard for them. But for the rest of us, I think we're like, it's about dang time. It's going to be a highly explosive time, and there's going to be a lot of heartache, particularly for those that argued for the wrong side and tried to play off that, oh, well, I was just trying to do this or that, or, we just wanted to have compassion. No, actually, you funded the side that destroyed multiple generations of kids in this nation. And there's not going to be any running and hiding from that. It's like when some of the recent political arguments, even with people marching in the streets lately, and then we find out that the leaders of those movements were, were crooks, and that the situations around the start of those movements were all a lie anyway. And that's what's going to happen, but people aren't going to be able to position it. It's, a giant red pill is the truck. I like that.
Love that.
But yeah, it's a pretty serious dream. It's a dream of consequence for sure.
Well, if Christmas is a sign, I look forward to it. I mean, I'll be happy to see that happen.
Well, and I think Christmas is Emmanuel, like Christ is coming in the midst of all of that.
Ooh, I like that.
The big picture window represents the future, but it represents the near future, what's right in front of us. So it's coming very quickly. And then the little girl represents taking care of the next generation. And you were the one feeding her the red pill or the red berry, right?
No, there was my son's sister, she didn't speak English, like a Spanish speaking woman in the kitchen, like that worked for whoever that worked there.
Mm-hmm.
That she was the one that was feeding the little girl the red pill or the red berry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I was there, if I was just seeing it.
Okay.
Because I don't remember having any role in that.
Yeah.
In the second one. But yeah.
Well, the actionable intelligence is to be ready, which I hate that as actionable intelligence. But what does that mean specifically? It doesn't mean store food and buy weapons. I'll tell you what it does mean. It means be close to God. Because when all of this stuff comes out, it's going to be super hard emotionally for people. And people are going to be looking for bridges to jump off of. I'm not declaring that. I'm just telling you that's what happens. That's what I worked with rescue workers after we pulled out a 9/11, after FEMA pulled out a 9/11 out of ground zero. I was part of an organization that set up a place called September Space where people who were affected by all of that could go. I met some of the rescue workers from Oklahoma City, and they had like 10 of them commit suicide just because they were the ones that had to pull those little kids out of that daycare and carry them off. And they just couldn't handle it. It's so hard to deal with normal life after you've picked up that kind of carnage. And so we thought, just based on the numbers, 9/11 could be hundreds. And thankfully there weren't, but there were a lot of steps that were taken to be with firefighters and police officers and keep an eye on people. To kind of help them. But that's what's going to happen, is that's the time that Jesus is really going to come, is because there's going to be there's going to be an opportunity for people to be depressed and to be upset, and they're going to not be able to deal with things in the normal way of life. And so they're going to need a bigger solution, and that bigger solution is going to be Jesus. That's where I believe the third great awakening and even the billion soul harvest is going to come from. But it's going to come from that deep, dark place when, people are going to say, let the rocks fall on us and hide us from the one who sits on the throne and the wrath of God because of what we've done or what we've allowed to happen in this nation. And not just in this nation, that'll be said in other nations around the world too. Powerful dream.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you for interpreting. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on, Karen. Happy Thanksgiving.
Take care. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Jim, you made it.
Thank you, John. Hi, Joey.
Hi, Jim.
Okay, this dream was on November 5th, and I titled it God of the Ages. I was in the sanctuary of our church, but it wasn't what it looks like in real life. It was bigger, and it had theater seating. The place was packed. Sue, my wife, was sitting to my right, and to my left was a new lady with a young son, probably 1 year old. She said her name was Tanya. I told her our names were Jim and Sue, but I had to repeat it due to the noise in the sanctuary. Next, I was holding her son as if to help her, and he was sitting on my lap. The congregation was directed to turn to hymn 568. At this time, everyone was standing except for me, as I was first attempting to turn to the hymn. I had difficulty turning the pages while holding the child. In fact, I kept grabbing a number of pages at a time, but I just never reached the page. Shirley, an older member of our church, I'll leave her last name out, was standing behind me, and I could hear her joking to me that by the time I got there, the song would be over. In a second scene, I saw a separate room in the church, like our current fellowship hall, but with 2 windows or doors at each end of the far wall. And on the other side of that wall was another room. I happened to be talking to our previous pastor, who's retired, about some ongoing construction, and he said, yes, those walls will still be torn down. End of the dream. So I looked up, I called this God of the Ages. This is the first time I've ever remembered a number from a dream, so 568 was God of the Ages.
So you were at, was it your church?
Yes.
And it's large stadium style seating. There was a couple, a lady with a newborn.
Yeah, 1 year, 1 year old.
1 year old.
In fact,
Okay.
I had this dream on the birthday of our grandson.
That's what Sue said.
It reminded me of. Oh, okay, yep, I see.
And so, I like that. Everybody on the same page. Okay, so after you turned to 568, it was God of the Ages. Then what happened?
Well, I never even turned there.
Oh, you couldn't get there. That's right. It was.
I just never got there, and then that scene was over.
And then what happened in the next scene?
In the next scene, I'm in a large room. It looked like the fellowship hall in our church.
Same church.
It was a little bit different. Yep, same church, different room, and it was just myself and our retired pastor. He's been gone for 5 years or so, 5 or more, and he's his just talking about some ongoing construction, which we do have some construction going on. And he said, yes, those walls will still be torn down.
When? Did he say when, or what was the context of those walls will still be torn down?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I think the idea of not getting God of the Ages, is that what you said the song was?
Mm-hmm.
The idea of not getting on the same page, I think, was really interesting. The idea of obviously the 1-year-old next to you was also interesting, especially as it relates to your grandchild. Oh, here it is, God of the Ages. But the tearing down the walls, that reminds me of two things. It reminds me of the tearing down the altars of Baal, but it also reminds me, of course, of Jericho. What do you have, Joey?
Well, the name Tanya means praiseworthy, so that's interesting too. That as you're worshiping or trying to, that and God doesn't change through the ages. He's the same. So our worship probably needs to stay the same.
I feel like it represents a spirit of religion. So the idea of the hymnal, the idea of, not that hymnals are bad, but they tend to be very traditional. And it's interesting, the juxtaposition between the stadium style seating and the hymnal. Do you have hymnals at your church?
Yes, we do.
And you have stadium style seating?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know
No,
that I've ever
it's a
seen those
relatively
together.
small church.
Okay. But the idea of the walls being torn down to me represents they're trying to get everybody on the page of the God of the ages. And I like what Joey said about the never changing, eternal stability of God. But in the midst of difficult times, it can be hard to be on that page. There's a lot of times that we feel like what's going on in our nation or what's going on in the world almost supersedes God or certainly traditional religion. And I think what we find out, what I feel like we find a lot of times is people who believe that, well, like cessationists who believe that God isn't powerful, God doesn't speak in dreams, God doesn't do miracles or heal people. We absolutely don't believe those things. There's a lot of people, though, that do. And when times are difficult, it's like, why would you even pray if your God is so impotent he can't answer you and affect the world around you? And so there's a lot. I'm not saying the spirit of religion is just cessationist, but there's a lot of denominations and even conventions of people who classify themselves as Christians who, this might be offensive, but the only way I can say it is, in the midst of a spiritual war, would be absolutely and utterly useless. They wouldn't know how to fight. They wouldn't know how to do warfare. They would be like, what do we do? What do we do? And we're like, well, don't you believe in God? Well, yeah, but he doesn't speak and he doesn't do anything. Well, okay, stand off to the side and let the real warriors through.
Yeah.
It's going to be kind of that thing. And it's like the idea of the walls being torn down as far as religion, but also even the walls of corruption, even the things that we're seeing on a nationwide level. I think also the walls where people have hid and said, well, we just don't believe those things. There's coming a time that you're either going to believe in God in the fullness of the power of who he is and his ability to save and transform a nation, or you're not going to believe it all. Like the fence will be gone. We will blow the fence up. And yeah, the voyeurs in the church, the people that just kind of show up to, grab a coffee and drink and feel comfortable and check the box that I went to church this week. Mm-hmm. What we were talking about in the last stream with the exposure, they're going to have to, those kind of people they're literally going to have to get out of the way. Mm. Frankly, I think there's going to be a lot of leaders in the church, not because we're against leaders, we certainly aren't, but there's a lot of people that are leading people that don't believe in God and don't have the power and authority. They don't believe in things like deliverance or like prophecy or like dreams or like miracles. They can't even get their heads around to healing, let alone multiplying food or raising the dead. I mean, these are all things that Jesus said clearly, you will do greater things than I, which means we have more power and more authority than he did in the entire time he was on the earth during his physical human body ministry.
Mhm.
People don't believe that. To not believe that is to be anti-scriptural. It's clear in the word. I can walk anybody through how we get to that place, but it's all in the Great Commission. I mean, if we even read the Great Commission. And so I think that there's a lot of walls. This, part of it is separating the wheat from the tares, where God says in the parable, let them all grow up together. And then what he's going to do is he's going to pull after they're full grown, and that's what's going to happen. There's full grown people that are tares, unfortunately, growing up in the church, thinking they're safe, thinking they're fine. And when the stuff hits the fan, they are not going to be okay. And they're going to need to be coddled and rescued just as much as the people that have no faith in God. In fact, the people with no faith in God will probably be easier, because they'll be like, well, I didn't know, or I didn't believe that way. And now they know, and they'll be probably an easier juxtaposition to move into a place of belief than people who thought they believed their whole lives, only to find out that they believed in an impotent God, and it wasn't the God of the Bible at all, ever. And they've been allowed to be snowed by people who didn't have a true level of faith or authority in who they were and what God's called them to be. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're going to need strong mothers and fathers to help the single moms, to help the people with young babies, to help. I mean, there's just going to be so much that's going to need to be done. And you guys certainly fall within that category.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the idea of helping that next generation learn that God's the same God that he was before, that he is today. Mm-hmm. That even when it's difficult to do something because you're holding that child and you have trouble doing it, you still need to do it.
Yeah, I agree with Carrie here. If you haven't, probably look up that hymn and look at the words, because I think it'll really speak. Oh, there you go. He's on it. 5, 6, 8. I was also looking up verses.
We have one of our old hymnals when they were getting rid of those and getting new ones. Uh-huh. And it's still 568 in the new ones. It's pretty much the same hymnal, but we have one of the old ones. So I looked
That's
it up.
Awesome. Well, the 5th book of the Bible is Deuteronomy chapter 6, starting in verse 7, but going through 8 or going through 9. 7 says, impress them on your children. They're talking about the commandments. Verse 6, these commandments that I give you today, they are to be on your hearts. Number 7, impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. And 8, so 5, 6, 8, tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Mm-hmm. What's in our hand and always in front of our forehead? Right? Write them on the door frames of your home and on your gates. Mm-hmm. And so when the Lord your God brings you into the land he swore to your forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give to you a land which is flourishing, cities you did not build, houses filled with all kinds of good things you did not provide, wells you did not dig, and vineyards and olive groves you did not plant, then you will eat and are satisfied. Be careful that you do not forget the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. So he's talking about, let me be the God of the ages through the struggle and into the abundance, that he never changes, that he's that place in our lives through all of it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's always good to see you and Sue, Jim. Thanks for coming on, man.
You too. All right. Thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving. All right, guys. Well, I am with family, and I took time away from family to do this tonight. So I'd love to get to everybody, but I just can't do everybody tonight because I think they're waiting on dinner for me. So thank you all for tuning in with us Thanksgiving week. I'll be home. So yeah, we'll be on next week again. If you need a quick answer on a dream, join our community and be part of, we have a free Facebook. Actually, if you go here, You can share your dreams and practice the interpretation of dreams, Dream Life Decoded /community. You can actually send us a dream right on our website, Dream Life Decoded. But you can also go to, it's called The Dream Lab on Facebook. It's free. You just got to join and tell us where you heard about us. So I know that, you were on Live Dreams and all of that. But you can post a dream. We have 1,200 people or so in that group. A lot of them are people that have been through the spiritual intelligence mentorship and all of that. And so there are a lot of the people even that are commenting. So yeah, it's really good to be able to get an answer there. If you want an answer from me and some of my, people like Joey directly, dinner. Okay. I'll be there in just a minute. Then come back next Tuesday. That's okay. I'm saying goodbye right now. So I have been summoned by the grandkids. So I love you all and hi. Say hi, everybody.
Hi. Well, we want to see. Come on. She is.
There, these two. There they are.
Hi, girls.
All right.
Are you wondering why this is cold?
No, I'm wondering why.
I just heard it.
Oh, no. Well, I got to go. So love y'all. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you soon.
Mommy,